Thank you very much and good morning all. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty Three territory. I'd like to introduce the members of the panel this morning via Zoom, Linda Schultz and Richard Whitbread. Myself, I'll be chairing. My name is Mike Colatriglio, and the administrative personnel this morning is Fran Picotto. The assessor for the department is Prabdeep Pawar, and to the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Border Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once the hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. You'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of property are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. You will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 9 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Assessor, please state your full name. Prabdeep Kaur. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Pawar, we start the morning off with 321 Assiniboine Avenue.
Yes.
I'd like to hear your submission on this, please.
For sure, thank you. File number 242961. Roll number is 120-925-19200. Address is 321 Assiniboine Avenue. Owner is CW Realty Incorporation. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 634,000. Subject property is a surface parking with the land area of 9,070 square feet and the outdoor parking stall count at 33. On the page number 2, we can see the pictures of the subject property, that it is irregular shaped lot and entrance and exit of this parking lot is from the back alley. And page number 3 has a Google view pictures of the subject property. And on the page number 4, we can see the subject property does not have any recent sales history. And this subject property is valued at the income approach. I have the 4 set of comparables on the page number 5. Stall count ranges from 32 to 65. And the NOI per stall per month is ranged from 93.23 up to 210.22, with the mean of $154.13, and median is $156.53. And on the page number 6, I have the income stream of the parking lot, which shows that the number of stall count 33, with the monthly net unit rent per stall is $80, which generates the annual net rent $31,680. With the 5% of cap rate comes up with the estimated value of the subject property to $634,000. And on the page number 7, I have the further breakdown of this income value summary. And page number 8 has the capitalization rate table. And from the page number 10 up to the page number 17, I have the income and expense mailer. Please note that this income and expense mailer for the subject property is consolidated with the $55 rate. And from the page number 18 up to the page number 23, I have the pictures of the comparable properties. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have questions of Ms. Puar?
I do. For your comparisons on page number 5, 170 Gary Street in particular, you have a stabilized of 176.62. Now, exactly what is the gross income on this property?
I don't have an idea because that comparable set of comparables, I take it out from our database. So I only know about the net operating income per stall per month is $176.62. I don't know their gross income.
Okay. If you just bear with me for a second here.
No problem.
Okay. So I just did some quick math here, and I took your rate of 176.62, multiplied it by the number of stalls, and then multiplied it by 12 months. And that gave me a gross of 77,760. Now, if you take that in reverse, that actually equals $180 monthly. So the question that I would have is that actually a net or is that a gross? Because it appears to be a gross to me.
I guess it is a net because the expense ratio 47% is already deducted, I think. So it is
I realize that, but if you actually multiply the 180 monthly rent by the $36 by 12 months, you get 77,760. You do that in reverse, that equals $180 per stall. So that appears to be a gross to me. Can you elaborate on how that was done?
So basically, these comparable, honestly saying it's not done by me. One of our senior assessor, put all the data together after from the income and expense mailers. They get that information from there. So what I did I choose nearest of my subject property, the stall count, and I try to pick the comparables which are in the downtown nearby that, and that's the best set of my sample size. So that's how I selected, but I personally did not did any investigation of each and every property on the comparable list.
Okay. And then again, with number 3 at 325 York, the monthly rate is $235, and the stabilized net is just below that. does that not seem a little bit excessive?
Yeah, that is in the high range of compared to the subject property. But still my mean and median is quite high compared to the subject property has a $80.
Okay. And you've gone with income this side, this
Yes.
turn. I assume because it has exceeded your land modeled rate, correct?
Yes, you're
Okay.
right.
And in your opinion, what is the highest and best use of this property?
So for this property, as per the income approach has the highest value. So according to our model, the highest and best use for this property is a surface parking lot.
Okay. Now, regarding your cap rate on page number 6, 5%, this is a modeled cap rate.
Yes.
And where would this cap rate come from?
So if you're referring to the page number 8 to find out where exactly that 5% cap rate exists, you will not find it because these capitalization rate table is basically the basically that is the compared to the Colliers, CBRE, Cushman and Wakefield. Based on their market analysis, the city analyzed that if our cap rate is falling between their cap rates. But if you are talking about specifically about the surface parking, you will not find that cap rate into that.
Okay, and specifically, there are no parking cap rates that you have to offer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, these are my questions for now. I do have a rebuttal on this particular property.
All right, when we come to that point, we'll make sure that you bring it forward, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Schultz, any questions at this point?
Just one question. The $80 that you have, that's based on a model, correct?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Questions?
My question concerns the consolidation of financials between the two buildings mentioned. So I think maybe I'll wait and talk to Mr. Navarro about that when we get to him. Thank you.
And I do not believe I have any questions, though. Maybe I do. With respect to page 5 of your brief, Ms. Boar, I see, and it's along the lines of Mr. Navarro's questions to you. You have a column that says expense ratio. And various percentage running from 21% up to 47% for these 4 properties that you've provided this morning, correct?
Yes.
Now, you've also got a stabilized NOI per stall per month. And I'm a little bit confused, and I think I understand why Mr. Navarro was asking the question, but I'll ask again. Does it make sense that if the monthly rate for, let's say, 170 Gary Street says $180 a month, and the expense ratio is 47%, it doesn't seem to jive with the 176.62 as a stabilized NOI. Do you follow my question here?
Yes, I follow your question.
So do you have an answer as to why that might be as high as it is in the stabilized NOI column?
Honestly saying, I don't really know about that. I need to do further research to get the proper answer. I don't want to give any false answer because I don't know how like monthly is 180 and the stabilized NOI is only 176 and the expense shows that 47%. It looks odd to me as well, as per our discussion, but I can't really justify right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were just, and again, forgive me, $180 a month times 47%, that gives me $84.60. Leaving $95.40. And I guess that's what I was kind of expecting in the NOI column, but that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yes.
Is it possible that those numbers are maybe model driven at that point? Do you know?
I don't think so, that numbers are model driven because that is from the income and expense bill.
Okay,
Has been entered from the income and expense bill.
fair enough.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, please, if we could have your submission at this point, thank you.
Okay, so we'll do the rebuttal after my,
Of course.
okay. So I'll start with my submission for 321 Assiniboine Avenue.
Just a moment, Mr. Navarro. Yeah. She's just going to get the rebuttal.
Okay, so which one do you want me to go with first?
I want you to go with your submission first,
Okay,
and then we'll come back to the rebuttal, please.
okay. Do you want me to start or wait for Fran to get back?
You can go ahead. She's,
Okay,
she'll be right back.
okay. Okay, so this is 321 Assiniboine Avenue. You can see the pictures on page 6. So this is an odd looking lot. It's right beside the bridge, the Midtown Bridge. We did look at any potential for development here, and obviously the location, the configuration make it highly unlikely to be developed as anything. It's also right up on the embankment of the Midtown Bridge. I guess as you start going out of the bridge. So on page 6, or so on page 8, you can see a property description of the property itself. We'll turn to page 10. And you can actually see some of the gross incomes that you have here. And so we used both. The information that was provided gives information for 2 parking lots, and we simply took the count and made a gross per stall from that. And that's how we came up with the figures. So the actual gross for all 49, as noted, and that includes 55 Donald Street, is $85,200. In 2022, the previous years produced the following incomes: 2021, $86,500, 2020, $83,318, and 2019, $83,438. Now, when it comes to expenses, we can't really parse out the expenses. So what we're doing here is basically coming up with a proper expense ratio. And we've deemed 50% to be a proper expense ratio. Now, getting back to one of the points that we made on the assessor's property regarding 170 Gary Street and how I was a little bit confused at this. Part of the confusion starts, first of all, with not having the gross income in there, because it's kind of meaningless to look at it without having the gross income. Because with the gross income, you can simply extract the gross stall per month, and also you can look at the expenses and then get the proper expense ratio for it. So having the gross income missing, it makes it almost impossible to look at those comparisons. So here we've actually done it the way that I've done it for many years now. And this is how we extract an expense ratio. Now, we deem the expense ratio to be about 50%. So let's do the math. On page 11, we're taking 50% of 86,500. That's 43,250, and that is basically $74 per stall net. So for the 33 stalls that are in this property, we take 33 times $74 times 12 months. That's a net operating income of $29,304. It's actually not that far from the model. So that is what we went with. In terms of the capitalization rate, we've applied a capitalization rate of 5%. That 5%, or sorry, 5.5%, that 5.5% is actually based on the study that we submitted where we observed several sales. And that would have been page 19 of the parking study. Now, this is outside of the downtown proper, so the what we would call the multiple use sector, where there are no constraints in terms of heights and in terms of what you can develop on those properties. However, we don't see anything foreseeable in the near future for this property. We think the highest and best use of the property is parking. So we've assigned a value of 533,000 rounded. Now, in the appendix, we have the income and expenses that were submitted by the owner. And I'm ready for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Moore?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions at this time?
My question on the mixed or consolidated statements is fine. I guess what I'm trying to get my head around, Mr. Navarro, sorry, I got to go back and forth here, is the number you used to come to your cheapers. Sorry, just taking a minute. To get to your line on page 11, you have 86,500 gross. You see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me where that came from?
Sure, that is actually the 2022 income for the property.
And does that show up on the financial statement?
That would, because that would be located on 321 Assiniboine. I actually might have overestimated it, actually. So on page 36 of the brief, you can see the parking entry there, 85,200. And I actually wrote 86,500, which was actually probably the 2021 figure. So I slightly overestimated the rent for 2022.
So the 85.2, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I could not find that. And then just another question, just sort of a general question. You have a document in here, the MOC document.
What page?
3 pages long, bear with me. I'm getting there, the Cushman Wakefield. Seems the surface parking. I think this was the one. Yeah, there's a 3-page document on page 25. Starts on page 25. And I think you actually published
Yeah.
this here.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of this document in brief? I read through it and I don't understand the purpose of you having it in this brief twice.
So if we look at the documentation for the subject, there is nothing there. So they have the office building located at 55 Donald Street. And sorry, I think a better explanation is actually, yeah. So on page 36, we see the financials for 55 Donald Street. And I'm going to actually probably confuse everyone some more and ask you to turn to the pictures on page 6. So on page 6, on the top picture, on the top picture, you see the subject with the tier mark, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so right, if you go directly north from there, you see a building. That is an office building, okay?
Across
And
the street?
Yes,
Yes, across the roadway, yes.
Exactly. In fact, there's a crosswalk around there, and you can actually basically cross right into this area.
Yes.
So that building is actually the parent property for both the parking lots, and the parking lot for the buildings are the one that's just adjacent to it on the right. on the left-hand side of Smith Street.
So that office building is the parent. Is that 172 Donald?
I thought it was 55 Donald, but I could be
Oh,
wrong.
sorry. I've got it wrong. 55 Donald and 172 or 171 is the other doc.
I can get you the name of the exact property actually. If you just give me a second here.
Let me go back to page 36 again, because it says here consolidated with 321 Assiniboine, sorry, and 55 Donald are consolidated, correct?
Yes. So 55 Donald is an office building,
Yes.
right? Okay. And right next to it, there is kind of like a parking lot. You can actually see it right there. Basically bending around Smith Street on the left-hand side, not on the Navy Way side. Basically adjacent to the office building. That's one parking lot. And the subject is also the second parking lot, the one with the teardrop. Okay, so they have two parking lots.
Okay.
Okay, and so the income, the gross income is basically the income for both of those parking lots. So if you break them down, you can break them down by the total stall count and then derive a per stall gross amount. And that's what I've done.
Okay, and so the Assiniboine property, 321 Assiniboine, is that the apartment adjacent to the teardrop parking lot? Or where is that? Or is that the one on Assiniboine? Because I see two apartments with some parking in between it, beside the teardrop.
Yeah.
With
Just
321 must be the one on Assiniboine itself.
yes, I believe so. That's the teardrop.
So that parking lot would service that teardrop. Would it also service that office building?
Yeah, they are one economic unit. So okay,
No,
just so I'm
that's not what I asked you though. I asked you, do people in the office building park in the teardrop parking lot?
yes.
Okay,
Yes, so those two parking lots make up all of the parking for that office building.
yes, I understand. Okay,
And Mr. Navarro, just so I have it absolutely clear, crystal clear in my mind. If you go directly left of the teardrop. The park or the building that is on Donald Street. Just north of the parking is the building you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, so if you take, you basically have to just go north of that teardrop. And there is an office building just on the other side of the road as the road starts to bend.
But always on the west side of Donald, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Sorry, no, it's on the west side of Smith, not on the west side of Donald.
that's correct. It's on the east side of Donald.
Yes, it's on the east side of Donald.
okay, so this is. The building further north of the property that the teardrop is on.
Yeah, that's what I said. Just take a kind of
Okay.
an arrow north.
All right, and I just wanted to make sure I got it clear because it was as clear as mud to me right up until that moment. So we are looking at the building directly north of the teardrop.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, correct.
All right, and the parking lot that you're referring to that was adjacent to that building is where, sir?
Okay, so just to the right of that building. you see
Okay,
an
so there's
open-
another kind of
Yeah.
triangular shape, but not really
Exactly.
triangular. Okay,
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to come back now.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I just wanted to get it absolutely clear because I'm thinking something else, but now I believe I have it. Thank you.
If I could come back now to my question, the document on page, I think you produce it on page 14 and somewhere else. The 3-page document. What is the purpose of that document? I'm not getting it. It's written by lawyers, obviously.
Yeah, so I just didn't want there to be any discussion about a penalty because basically what they handed in doesn't show very much other than it's been consolidated with two other with 55 Donald Street.
So
So
where in your mind would the penalty come from?
well, in terms of what they've submitted, there's nothing there. So that's where the penalty would have come in. However, when we have these multi-role situations where there are more than one role involved, the parent role usually has the information. That would have been the office building. So that's also why I supplied the information for the office building, because that's essentially where the parking information is.
So I'm looking at the paragraph that says financial information on this property does not necessarily, and this property would be 321 Assiniboine, the parking with a
Yeah.
teardrop, does not necessarily match with the categories in the assessor's forms, nor does the financial data necessarily relate to a single roll number.
Mhm.
But I think you addressed that, did you not, in the paragraph where you separated the revenues?
Yes.
Yes, and you have the parking revenue that I asked you to clarify on, and you did that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that kind of
And
covers you, does it not?
it does, but we don't know what move the assessor will make, right? Because this is, at the point that we're submitting evidence where we have no idea if the assessor will ask for a penalty or not. So we just wanted to address that. So the assessor also understood that there were several properties that were being noted in terms of the income and expenses here, with the parent property being the office building.
So in respect of that, Mr. Navarro, then when you prepare your brief, do you not have access to the assessor's brief?
Not
Because
until we've submitted.
until you submit,
Yes.
not prior to,
No, not prior to.
but you have a number, a value.
We do have a value. Yes.
Okay, you spin a mysterious web this morning with this document in my mind. Sorry, I'm a little bit confused by that document, but
it is confusing. It is confusing. I can see that. But what I will note is that anytime we have a situation where there's more than, there's one economic unit with another side property, and there are several parking properties that exist like that in the downtown, where, they will supply the income and expenses on the parent property. And in the past, the assessor has tried to go for the penalty. So that's why we continue to use this. We do this because we're showing that, no, they are submitting. It's just that they're submitting on the parent property.
I get your point. I've not experienced that myself in terms of a request for penalties, but that's fine. You've done a good job of clarifying this for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, any questions at this point?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my questions have been clarified already, so thank you very much, Mr. Navarro, for your presentation. Is there any summation between the two parties at this point? Nope. Mr. Navarro?
I have done just my rebuttal.
All right, and oh yes, we need to get to your rebuttal, so please,
Okay.
let's have a look at your rebuttal, sir.
Sorry, do we have a copy of that somewhere in our?
Yeah, it should be in the.
Yes, we have it.
Yeah, I just haven't looked yet.
Just refresh.
That's not your parking study, is it?
No, the parking study was submitted with all the evidence. This came afterward.
I've got it. Thank you. I found it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. not anymore.
You have it, but apparently I did not.
Good to proceed?
Just a moment.
Okay.
It's here. Let me make sure I'm not worried about it. Go ahead, Mr. Navarro. I now have it. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I'll start by saying that, as much as we do a lot of parking in the downtown, we don't have all of the records for the downtown. However, in this particular case, I was able to track down one property. And I noted before that there were some issues with 170 Gary Street. It simply doesn't make sense to me. And the next property that I looked at was the index number 2, which again also doesn't make sense to me. So I will explain exactly what I'm saying now. So you can see on index number 2 in the assessor's brief, and I'm just going over this. You might not have this at your right now open, but if you do, you can see that index 2 shows 42 stalls, 25% expense ratio, and a stabilized of 136.44. Now, what I will note on this property is that you can see that on page, this is 1, 2, 3 of yours, you have the income and expenses there. They note that you need to look at the attached statement. On page 5, you'll see the rent roll there. And there is a lease there of $7,500 per month to Imperial Parking, starting in May of 2019 and ending April 30th of 2024. Again, that's 7,500. And on the last page, you can see the income expenses, the parking revenues, all of that. 90,000. 90,000 actually happens to be 7,500 times 12. So at the very bottom, you note that please note the tenant in part pays all the other property expenses not shown on this statement. Those expense amounts are not in our possession or control. Now, this relates to a section of my parking study, and it's something that I've noted many times in the presentations on parking that I've given in the past. And there are 2 predominant types of agreements handled between parking operators and parking lot owners. And one is a lease agreement. And you can find this on page of the parking study on page 9.
So you would like to jump over to your parking study now?
Yeah, because now the parking study actually becomes relevant.
Before you do that, can I just ask you about the relevancy of these documents? The document I see down here is 225 Fort.
Yeah, actually on page.
I don't have page numbers, unfortunately.
Sorry. If you're opening up a PDF is it a PDF document?
I don't know.
Are we looking at the rebuttal, or are you looking at your
The rebuttal?
The rebuttal seems to be a PDF document.
Okay.
And
so
I can't see any page numbers.
It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, page 4 of 6, I believe, on the rebuttal. And it would be the basically the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department 2022. It's the income and expense questionnaire. It would be page 1 of the income and expense questionnaire. And it actually shows the roll number up top. So it says 1209-304-5000.
Yep.
Okay, looks like we're looking at item
Index
2,
2.
the assessor's list, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So what we know about this is that this is the lease agreement. Now we're flipping to the parking study. So now that we've established that this is a parking lease, the lease agreement, the owner leases the parking facility to the parking operator for a fixed annual fee. That is the lease agreement. In this case, it would be $90,000 per year. Essentially, what's being said here is that the parking operator buys the income stream from the owner. So what we don't have is the real performance of this property. We don't know exactly how much this property is actually grossing. We only have the net amount of the lease that they're giving the owner, which is a $7,500 per month payment. This property could gross double that for all I know. And that would change the math of the expense ratio. The reason this number of 25% on the assessor's surface parking rates actually kind of, the light bulb went off is simply because 25% is too low an amount for a parking lot. Generally, parking lots function from anywhere from 40% right all the way up to 60%. And we've chosen 50% as an average in our study. Now, that is what clues me in that that is actually not a proper net. That is based on a lease where we're not actually getting the true representation of the potential income for the property. So right off the bat, that NOI of 136.44 that the assessor has, 25% expense ratio, it's simply wrong. It's not taking into account the true gross for that property. And we don't know what the gross is simply because the operator is not required to divulge that amount to the owner.
And Mr. Navarro, it's a point taken that you brought up saying, well, they haven't used actual pro forma from the parking lot, but information was requested from the owner of the parking lot. And
The information that
the lease provided, right? And I note that in your rebuttal, you show on page 7 the income, of course, the revenues. And I note that they have certain expenses that they have claimed, and I say they being the lessee, correct? If I say anything incorrectly, Mr. Navarro, please jump in. And then that leaves us a net income of 68,814, correct?
that is what the owner reports.
Correct.
However, what the owner reports
And what they actually get in the lot, we don't know what they get.
exactly. So it says right at the bottom, there's a disclaimer there that says those expense amounts are not in our possession or control. So they would know exactly what this property is earning and what the true expenses are for this property.
Yeah. But the reality is this is played over many, many times in surface parking lots in downtown Winnipeg, is it not?
Of course it is, but that is the reason we don't take lease agreements into account when we are actually calculating potential incomes for parking lots.
Fair. The assessor, though, has, and the department, let's be very clear, the department has obviously taken the reported income from the owners, and they've generated a number that I believe, when you do the math, it works out to 136.44 for this, or approximately 136 for the stabilized NOI per month.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
It is.
So, I'm
It's
getting it the way I think I see it. And you're telling me we should be looking at it, but we should be looking at it by way of what they actually earn, correct?
absolutely, and that is exactly the way that we would present it at any board, whether it's the Board of Revision or the municipal board. We've always had the requirement to provide the potential gross. We take off the expenses, and then we come to a net operating income. But in the case of leases, we're not getting the true representation of what the actual gross is.
But we do that with every other retail store in the city of Winnipeg also, do we not?
Parking
We
doesn't
look at
function
the
that way,
income
sir.
That's generated by the lessee, we look
No.
at the income that's generated to the owner, do we not, sir?
No, sir. The parking is actually determined as a gross. There are no such thing as net rents in parking. They are gross. And if we're not getting that true representation, we're not really providing you with the facts.
I'm sorry, forgive me for jumping in a little bit, I just want to understand the position that you're taking. So please continue on, my apologies.
So we estimate a gross for the property. And that is what we've done by taking the amount that was in the expense, in the income and expenses provided for the parent role. We divide it by the number of stalls and then divide it by the number of months to get a true gross for the property. We then apply an expense ratio that we feel is appropriate for the property. We've determined that this cycle, the proper expense ratio is about 50%. And then that 50% is taken off. We get a net, and that is divided by the number of stalls to get the net rate per stall or the net operating income. But in order to estimate a gross for the property, you either need to have the gross amount or you need to estimate a gross. However, in this case, what you're getting is just the amount of rent they're paying the owner, which is, we don't know if that's actually how much they're getting on an annual basis. And simply stated, the expense ratio of 25% is what kind of clues us into that.
Anything further, Mr. Navarro?
Nope.
All right. Questions, Mr. Ward?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
And Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I believe I've already asked and have answered questions that I was interested in, so thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, I appreciate the submission that you made on this morning and the discussion with it. Please, thank you very much. And at this point, I believe you and the assessor have no further comments to be made on this, gentlemen, both of you?
Yep, no comments.
No comments here. Mr. Navarro, any final thoughts, sir?
I have no summation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe with that, we can move on to the next property. Now, Mr. Navarro, I'm assuming that your rebuttal will be carried forward to any other parking lots that we see this morning.
I don't believe the assessor is actually going with income values on most of these. They're actually going with land values.
Okay. Well, if we need to come back, I guess we can come back.
Yeah.
So all good, very good. We will move on to the next property and that would be 244 Broadway.
Yep.
So Ms. Pawar, can we have your submission on this, please?
Yep, thank you. So the file number 243127, row number is 120-924-73000. Address is 244 Broadway. Owner is the numbered company. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 1,014,000. Subject property is a surface parking with the land area of 7,801 square feet. It has 30 parking stalls. On the page number 2, there is an aerial view of the subject property. It is at the corner of Gary Street and Crossing Street, I believe, is the Broadway. So on the page number 3, I have the Google pictures of the subject property. So subject property is managed by a parking spot, which is a public parking. So there is a Pay mobile app where you can just park your car by paying daily, monthly, and weekly. Entrance and exit for the subject property is from the Gary Street. So the subject property does not have any sales history on the page number 4. And this subject property is valuated on the land with the 129.98 per square feet. I have the 4 set of comparables with the land size range from 3,025 square feet to the maximum of 18,173 square feet. And the sale price per square foot is ranging from $119.54 to maximum of $133.88. with the mean sale price per square foot is $128.56. And the median is $130.41. And on the page number 8 and 9, I have the income and expense mirror for the subject property. And from the page number 10 up to the page number 15, I have the pictures of the comparable land sales. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions at this point, sir?
Just the land rates that you've used are because the model has exceeded the income of the property?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you are aware that all of those incomes that you have there, or sorry, these land rates that you have here are actually based on sales of parking lots, correct?
Yes, because they are also the parking lot, the comparable sales, but they are classified on the land sales.
Okay.
Yes,
And then you simply divide the square footage of the property by the sale price, correct?
yes, right.
Okay. Now, would you say that these values are actually being determined by the land price, or are they actually being sold as parking lots?
So that is for the land price, because the reason why, because the parking is an interim use. So anybody who is buying the properties in the downtown, they are not buying for it is a parking lot. They are buying it for to develop it in the future. So the parking lot is the interim use. So if they want to develop anything on the parking lot, they can. So we just find the comparables based on the land sale, and their interim use is a parking.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in order to validate that response, do you have any information on whether any of these properties are going to be developed in the near future?
Yes, so if you just see the comparable number 175 Donald Street, I don't think so I have the pictures right now, but let me double check. 175 Donald Street. Okay, so I don't have the front picture, but if you have access of internet, because I don't have right now, but I search it. The 175 Donald Street is merged with the property at 185 Donald Street and 300 on the St. Mary one. And there is a big new apartment building is building, and the 175 Donald Street is merged with it. And on the spot of where is a 175 Donald, I can see there is a 3-story park is building which is currently under progress.
I actually don't even know where 175 Donald is. I'm just trying to find it actually.
Page 10 of the
Yes.
assessor's
Great.
brief, you see the map that she has produced for comp 175 Donald Street, if that helps, Mr. Navarro.
Okay, yeah.
So where is that apartment
Oh,
building being
yes,
built?
yes.
I
Okay,
think the
got
apartment
it.
being built on that property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
park rate, no.
Okay. If you can actually turn to my, no, I don't know if I should present this as it at this point. You do realize that actually is in my parking study, 175 Donald Street. Okay, so that was a consolidation of an assembly of 3 parcels that were created to build that apartment building. There's no doubt that is actually part of an assembly, okay? But can you say that for the subject? Is there any likelihood that there's going to be any type of development there in the interim use because of the interim use?
So right now it is interim use as a parking. So I don't really know the plan of this owner for this parcel for the in future thing. But it is a square lot and it is in the corner of Gary and Broadway, and it has a potential to develop it in the something like in the office or anything, but I can't really comment on that because I'm not the modeler or like a planner of city, so
Well,
that's-
I think when you're talking about the highest and best use, you have to ask yourself that question though, don't you?
yeah, but the highest and best use for this property, we will say as a land right now.
For development.
Yes,
Okay, not for parking.
not the part.
Okay,
It is the interim use of part.
good enough.
Thank you.
Any further questions, sir?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, questions at this time?
No, I have done, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I don't, I have any further questions. So, Mr. Navarro, if we could hear your presentation on this, I would love to hear it. Please, thank you.
We didn't have much information on this property. So the way that I approached it is I simply used the top end of the assessor's net rates from their income charts for parking. So the assessor derives modeled rates every cycle. This is the model rate chart on page 9. And you can see that it ranges in between 56 and 104. We chose the top end of that at 104, multiplied it by the number of stalls to get a net rate of 37,440. And we applied a 5.25 cap rate on this location. So we have 532,800 or 533,000. Sorry, that's 713 and it's not. Actually, I should actually calculate that just to make sure that is 37,440. Oh, no, it is. It's 713,143 or 713,000 rounded. That's all the information I have. I'm open for questions.
So are you telling us this, the 532,800 should not be?
Is a
there?
mistake. Yeah.
Thank you. I wondered about that.
Yeah, it's copied throughout some of the briefs that you have.
Okay.
Looks, yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you very much. Ms. Moore, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Schultz, questions?
Just one question. On your page 9 of your brief, and you've got the ranges on the net income from 56 to 104, and you went with the top end. Is there a reason why you've gone with the top end at 104?
This parking lot in particular is located next to the Fort Garry Hotel, so I assume it gets a little bit more traffic than your typical parking lot.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Asked and answered.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I have any further questions either, so any summation on either party's behalf?
I don't have any.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to the next property then. Just give me a moment, please. Up there. Well, this is an address on Broadway without proper civic address. It is file number 24-2384. So Ms. Poir, can we hear your submission on this,
For
please?
sure, thank you. File number 242384, room number is 120-9250-5500. The address is on the Broadway, but there is no any street address. The owner is Number Company. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 727,000. Parcel is the surface parking with the land area of 5,812 square feet. It has the 24 parking stall. On the page number 2, we can see the aerial view of the subject property, that it is on the corner of Broadway and Donald and next to 296 Broadway. And page number 3, I have the further pictures of the subject property. We can see that the subject property from the pictures is not much clear, but I researched it. It is the parking lot managed by the Impark Parking. And they have the entrance and exit from the back lane. And on the page number 4, we don't have any sales history for the subject property. On the page number 5, I have same set of comparables. And the property is valued at the land only, with net rate per square foot is $125.09. And my comparables mean is $128.56, and the median is $130.41. And on the page number 8 and 9, I have the income and expense information. And page number 10 up to the page number 15, I have the pictures of the comparable properties. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions of the assessor at this point?
Yes, your comp number 1 again on your land comparables. These are the same comparables again. We spoke about this one briefly last cycle. This was your last property. This is a part of an assembly, correct?
Which one? $175?
Yes.
Part of assembly, what do you really mean by? I don't.
3 properties that were purchased to
Yes,
essentially to
yes.
build one. Okay, and
You're
this
right.
was the last piece of this assembly. Would it not achieve a higher price simply because they needed to get that parcel of land in order to get the density that they wanted?
It could be the reason it is sold at highest price, but it was sold in back in 2020, and I really don't know when this 175 Donald Street is combined with the 185 in which year, or either they have a pre-planned to make new apartment building or they choose later on. So, but if you just talking about this parcel is selling at the highest price, I understand, but still my range is from 119 to 133. So which is fair because my subject property is valued at 125. And the 641 William, 240 St. Mary, and 330 Donald, they all are still the parking lots.
Mhm. Yeah, your 240 St. Mary's Avenue, that's the parking lot adjacent to the old Mitzi's restaurant, correct?
Give me a second. It could be, but I really don't know because I have not explored much about that.
It's actually on your pictures.
I can see there is a restaurant kind of thing on the page number 13.
Yeah. So this is actually not even a commercial parking lot, correct?
It could be, but as I know that the 240 St. Mary's, the parking lot adjacent to the restaurant could be used for the customers for the restaurant, I can say, because I can't really find the information if it's managed by the Impark or Indigo. So that is only the parking lot I can see.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Do you have questions?
Just one clarification. Did I hear you say there was no sales history?
For the subject property?
Yeah, for the subject property.
Recent, I said no recent sales history.
Okay,
Yes,
so the $1 million sale in,
yeah, in 2004, and it's really old, so we can't really look into it.
thank you. No further questions.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, and I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro, can we hear from you at this point, please?
Yeah. This is 0 Broadway. This is on the corner of Donald and Broadway. This would be the southeast corner. And you can see a picture of it on page 6 with a little star on it on the top. That is the parking lot. So this parking lot actually services 280 Broadway. As well, it's also conjoined with the parking lot just below it and the parking lot just to the right of it. So these were all back in the day part of a large portfolio sale. But this one operates again to service 280 Broadway.
This
On
is,
page 9,
sorry, Mr. Navarro, just so that I have that clear, when you say services 280 Broadway, are you speaking of the apartment block next door or the office building?
no, it's the office building just beyond the parking lot. Sorry, just beyond the apartment building to the right.
Yep.
There is the large office building there.
Yes,
That
I
is,
just wanted to make sure of what I
Yeah.
was looking at, sir. Thank you.
yeah. These properties are all owned actually by Slate REIT, a REIT out of Toronto. So 280 Broadway, the parking lot just below it, the parking lot, the larger parking lot to the left of it, and our subject are all part of that same assembly there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, so you can see a small description. This is 24 parking stalls. In this situation, we've gone with a slightly lower rent than we did for the previous property. $90 at 24 stalls, 25,920 is the net operating income, and a cap rate of 5.25. That equals 493,714 or 494,000. And we've supplied the income and expenses that were submitted. So I am open for questions.
Ms. Bohr, any questions at this point?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, questions?
I have none, thank you.
Much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
Just clarifying on this property, you said you're going lower at the $90 per square for rent. It says in your income approach, however, we know that this site typically operates at $90 per month. Have you got information on that?
Where do you see that?
Page 9.
Oh, the net rate. Yeah. So this parking lot doesn't range, like the range of it doesn't vary too much from cycle to cycle, because as I said, it's tied to the office tenancies at 280 Broadway. So the rentals tend to be consistent year over year, regardless. So $90 is generally where it's been performing at in the past, and that's where we left it for this cycle. That said, it's not close to the Fort Garry, and we know that the Fort Garry, for example, would provide additional demand for that particular parking lot. In this parking lot, it's not so much the case.
Okay. And best use of this land, in your opinion, is just a parking lot?
I don't know how it could be anything else.
Okay.
It's been a parking lot for more than
Ever.
20, yeah, forever, exactly. So this is what we get into the issue of the highest and best use of the property, because
Right.
it does become an issue. Otherwise, you're simply speculating as to what this property
be.
might be doing.
Yeah. Okay, no further questions. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions?
I'm fine, thank you. Nothing.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Navarro, and I'm kind of curious, you seem to be suggesting that this subject property is less valuable than the one we just heard of further down Broadway, but closer to the hotel. you seem to put a premium on that one and less of a premium on one where monthly renters from the apartment, not the apartment block, but from the actual office building, which are, that's going to be a known amount month over month, as opposed to next to a hotel, which they have their own parkade to begin with, and there are multiple other parking lots in that area, are there not?
Well, I would say that just from attending many functions at the Fort Garry Hotel, I know that I've personally parked at this parking lot, and I know a lot of people do. So I would think that that's probably where a lot of the additional demand for that one would come from, is the after hours parking that the hotel demands. For the subject property, it's, yes, the tenancies are tied to the
Office building, right?
to the office building. But I mean, as you know, for most office properties in the downtown, I think for that particular property, we're dealing with about 15% vacancy, if not higher. So that in itself would probably create less demand. And in general, I mean, from the trend of, having the hybrid workforce and office tenancies, the demand for certain parking lots probably would be affected because they are location specific. That's why one parking lot can have a completely different outlook than one that may be just across the street. But in general, in the downtown, most parking incomes have been declining since the pandemic because of the lower amount of traffic in the downtown during the day.
Right, those are my questions, sir. Thank you very much for your submission. Any submission or final comments on this property from either party? Mr. Navarro?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe with that, we've concluded item number 3. We will move on to 84 Carlton Street. Ms. Pawar, may we have your presentation on this property, please?
Thank you. File number 242377. Roll number is 120-926-24000. Address is 84 Carlton Street. The owner is Shano Building Incorporation. I'm pronouncing wrong.
That's okay, don't worry about it.
2025 assessed values based on April 1st, 2023 is 1,136,000. The parcel is surface parking with the land area of 9,035, and the outdoor parking is a stall 42. And on the page number 2, I have the pictures of the subject property. It is at the corner of Carlton, and I believe the crossing street is Edmonton. I don't have the clear picture though. So this parking lot is opposite to the 360 Broadway. From my pictures, it's not really clear. If you have the Google map view, you can clearly see that the 360 Broadway and this parking lot has the same owner. And the access to this parking lot is from the back lane between Edmonton and Carlton, and that lot is managed by the Impart. And page number 4, we don't have any sales history of the subject property. And page number 5, I have the same set of comparables. And this property is valued at the land only, with the net rate per square feet is $125.73. And page number 7 and up to the page number, I believe is page number 15, I have the income and expense mailer, and that in properties income and expense mailer is also consolidated with the roll number 120-926-24000. And on the page number 16 up to the page number 21, I have the pictures of the comparable properties which I presented in the earlier 2 dockets. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions at this point?
I do. Madam Assessor, the comparisons again on page 5 that you have. The bulk of these are coming from the multiple use sector, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And 175 Donald Street is a 14-story. I just actually checked it up in my parking study. It's a proposed 14-story building, correct?
I don't really know about that 175, don't know how many stories are there.
Actually, you can look it up in the parking study that I submitted as evidence.
The one is the separate downtown parking study, you mean?
Yes, on page 26 of that study, you can
I
actually
can see.
find it in there.
Yep, it's clear picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can see right at the top that it is a proposed 14-story mixed-use apartment tower.
Yes, I can.
Okay, now this property that you have allocated these sales to is in the downtown living sector, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and it's also located in the South Broadway area.
these all are, yes, I believe, I think the William is little bit.
Okay.
2 kilometers away from the subject property kind of thing, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's all.
those are my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Whitbread?
No, I have done, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I don't have any further questions. So, Mr. Navarro, may we hear from you, please?
Sure. So this is 84 Carlton Street, and this is right behind sorry, forgive me. I'm just going to place this property in my search just so I can give you the property that it's attached to. Okay, so this property is actually attached to 360 Broadway, and I believe that actually is stated on page 7. 360 Broadway is an office building located on the southwest corner of Carlton and Broadway. Now, this is a very similar situation that we had to the first property on Assiniboine. So the income itself is actually tied to the main holding at 360 Broadway. So on that property, you can see in the picture, our subject is the teardrop, and you can see the building to the north of it. Now, the building to the north of it also has some parking around it. So the parking actually is considering all of that parking, not just our teardrop there on page 6. So in total, there are 64 stalls. In our subject, there are approximately 42 stalls. So the remainder are actually basically enveloping the building itself. Now, the parking lot to the left of the office building, that's not part of our, we're not looking at that at all. That's a separate parking lot altogether. So we have 64 stalls, and for 2021, 133,922, 128, 160 for 2020, 2019, 126,450. In 2022, it was 149,100. And again, we've applied a 50% expense ratio to it. On page 10, you can see that that actually ends up being 74,450 as a net, or $97 per stall. So we've applied a net operating income of 48,888 and a 5.5% cap rate to this, which is 889,000 rounded. Now, in the appendix, you can see that I have some.
Are you doing 5% or 5.5% cap rate? You said
5.5.
Okay,
5.5.
sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. So on page 13, you can see the beginning of the downtown living sector, and this is taken from the zoning bylaw. If you would turn to pages 18 and 19, you can see the general map on page 19. Our property is actually located within this sector, the South Broadway subsector. And on page 18, you can see the South Broadway subsector bulk regulations. So you can see that the maximum height is 25 feet. The minimum height is 25 feet. The maximum height is 60 feet. Floor area ratios are not applicable. However, they are putting a cap on the height on it. And that is essentially because, actually, I don't know. I suspect that it has something to do with the sight lines to the legislative grounds. Yeah. So I think they wanted to restrict that high density, high story development. So the development in the multiple use sector and in this particular sector would be completely different. They wouldn't allow the density, simply stated. There wouldn't be enough space here to actually go for too much density. But that being said, there are restrictions on the total height. So the fact that the assessor is actually using predominantly sales from the multiple use sector, where there are effectively no restrictions on heights and things like that, we think is wrong. So we are sticking to our premise that the highest and best use of this property is still parking. And I'm open for questions.
Ms. Moore, question?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. Whitburn, questions?
I have none, thank you.
And I don't believe I have any further questions either, so unless there's summation on either party,
No.
I'm good, thank you.
thank you very much. Just give me a moment. And that concludes that property. So, Mr. Whitbread, are you needing a break, sir?
How about we do this one more property and then we take a break after that?
I thought I'd ask just to be certain.
I appreciate that, sir.
No, you're quite welcome. So then we will move on to 65 Kennedy Street. Ms. Boar, can we have your presentation on this, please?
Sure. The file number 242266. Roll number is 120-926-93000. Address is 65 Kennedy Street. The owner is Peregrine Equities Limited. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 543,000. Parcel is surface parking. And the land area is 6,031 square feet, and the parking stall counts are 21. On page number 2, I have the pictures of the subject property. And on the page number 3, I have the picture of the subject property from the Google Street View. This subject property has access from the back lane between Winnipeg and Broadway. Electric outlet are available on this parking lot. And also 386 Broadway is the office building which is nearby this property and has a same order. Page number 4, I don't have any recent sales history of this subject property. And page number 5, I have the same set of comparables, and this property is valued at the land only with $90 3 square feet. And page number 7, I have the income and expense mailer of the subject property up to the page number 10. Although they reported the number of stalls are 17, but me and the applicant has the same count of parking lot is 21, so which I believe is the correct one. And from the page number 11 up to the page number 16, I have the pictures of the comparables. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions, sir?
Yes, I do have some questions. Madam Assessor, the subjects that you've, sorry, the properties that you've included in your report on page 5.
Yes.
Would you think that number 1 is appropriate because it does have a completely different zoning? And as I pointed out in the previous property, that property would not have the restrictions that our subject would have. So would there be a difference in the price potentially that a potential purchaser would pay on our property?
It could be the effect of the zoning, but as you know that the zoning can easily change by submitting the application. So I don't really think that the zoning plays a lot of things in the price range difference. But if you just comparing as you presented your brief in the last property about the height issue, we can say it might have an impact, but my subject property is valued less than my comparables. So which is $90.03, which is fair.
Okay, your subject on 641 William Street is located next to a food store. Would you think that that actually is possibly serving that food store?
Give me a second.
That is your comparable number 2. And also it is located on page 12 of your assessor. That is an actual food store there on the corner. Would you think that that's possibly serving that?
Yeah, I believe yes.
Okay. And 633 McDermott Street, CMU. First of all, this is not even in the same area, correct?
Yes. 633 McDermott Avenue. Yeah, it is far away from the subject property.
Okay. And 170 Bannatyne is located in the Character District, correct? That is in the East Exchange, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you're aware that there are restrictions on development in that area as well?
The corrector C.
Yes.
Give me a second. Yeah, I have the zoning description about that. I can say yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Schultz?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
No, I have none, thank you.
Thank you, and I don't believe I have any questions. So, Mr. Navarro, can we hear from your presentation, please?
Yes, this is 65 Kennedy Street. You can see the general location on page number 6. And as you can see, this is a smaller lot. It's located right across from the legislative grounds. And if we turn to page 9, we can see the income and how we approached it. So we've looked at several years here and we took an average. I am using 22,874 as the average. That basically works out to about $91 per stall monthly. So 22,874. Again, we've applied the 50% expense ratio to that, which gives us a rounded value of 416,000 again. The submission provided by the owner on pages pages 12 through 16. Starting on page 17, again, the downtown living sector. And you can see that this property is also located in the South Broadway subsector where there are height limitations on any future development. I would argue with the assessor that it's not as easy as simply applying for a a variance or something like that. This is a complicated process. And not only that, but they've specifically laid out an area that they want adherence to. So that specifically speaks to them trying to control heights in this area. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Boar, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Just a clarification on page 10. I think your reconciliation of values is 889. It seems to be a typo from another property.
On page 10, we have 22,874 divided by 550.
Go to the reconciliation of value paragraph.
Oh, yes, yes,
That's
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, that's just typo.
Oops.
I like it better, but thank you. I have nothing else.
And I don't believe I have any further questions. Any summation, either party?
No,
Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, I think at this point we will take a 5-minute recess, and thank you very much for your time and patience, guys. Thank you and welcome back. We are moving on to item number 6 on our docket this morning. That being 177 Kennedy Street. And Ms. Pawar, I believe you are withdrawing your request for non-cooperation on this, yes?
yes.
All right, so noted. Thank you very much. So if we could have your presentation then.
Sure, thank you. File number 241323. Roll number is 120-936-46100. Address is 177 Kennedy Street. Owner is Grand Spain Limited. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 905,000. The subject is the surface parking with the land area of 7,193 square feet. And it has the 33 parking stalls. So I'm withdrawing the non-corporation for this subject property. On the page number 2 and 3, I have the pictures of the subject property. The front is facing the Kennedy Street, and the parking is managed by a parking spot, which is a pay mobile public parking. And I believe there is no any electric outlet in this parking lot. And on the page number 4, I don't have any sales history for this subject property. And on the page number 5, this property is also valuated at the land only, with the net rate per square foot is $125.82. At the same set of comparables. And on the page number 7, there is an email from the estate. And that information, we believe it as the income and expense measure. So therefore, we will ignore the income and expense information for 165 Kennedy. And there is another income and expense mailer of 172 Edmonton, so we ignore those at this point. And from the page number 31 up to the page number 36, I have the pictures of the comparable properties. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions for the assessor at this point? You're muted, sir.
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe I have no questions either, so Mr. Navarro, if we could hear from you, that would be great.
Okay, we're looking at 177 Kennedy Street. And you can see a picture of it on pages 6 and 7. It's next to an apartment building. And this is operated, I believe, by Parking Plus. You can see that in the income approach, we didn't have access to that email that was sent to the assessor. So had we known about that, we may have changed our approach slightly. However, we've taken $90 per stall as the net, and that is again taken from the City of Winnipeg chart on net rates for parking in the downtown. And we've applied a 5.25% cap rate to this one. So on pages 10, you can see the workup 90 times 33 stalls times 12 months, 35,640, 35,640 divided by 525. That is 678,857 or 679,000 rounded. I'm open for questions.
Ms. Bourne, any questions at this point?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Whitford, any questions at this point, sir?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Schultz, any questions at this point?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think this is, you're using a 5.25% cap rate on this one, Mr. Navarro, correct?
Yeah, it's in a different zoning district character, or sorry, the multiple use. However, given the size of it, it's kind of limited in its potential. So we see this as going forward as parking, but not having much risk there. It's going to continue as parking. It's always going to have a reasonable income. So I don't think there's very much risk in this property. So slightly different cap rate.
Thank you very much, sir. And any summation from either party this morning? No?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe we can move on to item number 7. That being 170 William Stevenson Way. So Ms. Boar, may we hear from you on this one, please?
I have a rebuttal for the parking count for this property. So,
I'll get to that in a little bit.
so the file number 242034. The roll number is 12091920500. Address is 170 William Stephenson Way. The owner is the number company. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st. 2023 is 5,667,000. And the parcel is a surface parking with a land area of 61,813 square feet. It has the 231 parking stalls. On the page number 2, I have the aerial view of the subject property. And the page number 3 has a further clear picture of the boundary of the subject property is the parking lot. And page number 4, I have the further picture taken from the Google Street View. Page number 5, I don't have any recent sales history of the subject property. And page number 6, I have the 4 set of comparables with the stall count range from 36 to 153 and the stabilized net operating income ranging from $93.23 up to $210.22 with the mean of $154.51 and the median is $157.29. The subject property is valued at through the income approach. Total number of the parking stalls are 231 and the monthly net rent per unit per stall is $92, which generates the annual net rent of $255,024 with cap rate of $4.50. 50% generates the estimated value of the subject property is $5,667,000. And page number 8 has a further breakdown of the income value summary. And page number 11 through page number 16, I have the income and expense mailer. In their income and expense mailer on page number 13, if you can see, they reported the number of stalls are 185, which we kind of are opposed, and I can talk about that more in my rebuttal. And page number 17 up to the page number 22, I have the pictures of the comparable properties. So that is the end of my presentation for now.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Navarro?
I do. Madam Assessor, have you actually walked this lot and counted the stalls in it?
If you can say in this winter, no, but previously in the summer, we counted. And also this property has the history of the stall count discrepancy between applicants all the time and the city. And we have personally, if I talk about the rebuttal, I can talk. If I can speak about the rebuttal now, Mr. Chair?
We'll get to that
Okay.
after we've had a question.
Yeah, my answer will be in the rebuttal, then I can say.
Okay,
About parking counts.
okay, thank you.
Because I'm guessing that you guys don't disagree, you don't agree with the count on this, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Navarro?
I counted this property several years ago, so it may have changed. And I know that the owner has, over the years, made some slight changes to the parking lot, so it may have changed. I can't with 100% certainty say that it's not 231.
Okay, well, we will circle back to the assessor's rebuttal after we've had both sides present their evidence. And for the moment, we will reserve those comments for when we have that done. So, please, go ahead.
Do we have questions still?
No, I'm good, thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Mr. Redbread, do you have any questions at this point?
Well, they center around the count of stalls, but I'm not sure where the right time to ask the question. I have a 231, I have 205, and I have 185. I've seen those three numbers. So maybe once we do Mr. Navarro's presentation and then we get the rebuttal from the city, we might have an answer at that, what the definitive number is. That seems to be a big issue because
that seems to be the issue of the moment, no question. And I know this law has been through the years, same issue is that it has changed somewhat. And we need to get to that in a moment, but first we'll, I believe, go through our questions of the assessor at this point, and then we'll circle back with the rebuttal that they have got so that we can then ask questions further. So, Schultz, sorry, Mr. Whitford, do you have any further questions?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Schultz, do you have questions at this point?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll keep reserving mine for the final thoughts. Mr. Navarro, can we hear from you on this particular property, sir?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. So we are looking at 170 William Stevenson Way. And this is next to essentially the ballpark across the street and adjacent to the CNR High Line coming out of the Forks and Union Station. So you can see pages of it on pages. Does everyone have numbering on this or not?
You're referring to which number, sir?
No, I'm asking if there is page numbering in your briefs.
Not in mine.
No,
Okay. Is it a PDF?
Just the computer page numbers as we're scrolling down, sir.
yeah, it
Okay.
goes, we can see that.
Okay, so on pages 6 and 7 of the PDF document, You can see the general pictures of the property, and you can see its relation to the ball diamond next to the CNR line. And you can also see a picture on the right side on page 7 showing the document showing a yellow line crossing the middle of, not quite the middle, more so the right side of the property. I'll get into that in the next section. So I'll ask you to turn to pages.
Sorry, Mr. Navarro, I'm a little bit confused when you say page 7, because your brief only goes to page 6 that I see, but I can also see on pages 2 and 3 overhead pictures of the parking lot, and they have conveniently added a stall count to it, it appears. Am I mistaken?
That's.
Oh. My, oh my, okay. I've apparently jumped the gun. Ah.
Are you looking at the rebuttal?
I was looking at the assessor rebuttal, my apologies both.
Okay.
I did not realize that I was in the wrong file. So. Forgive me, Mr. Navarro. So.
Okay, so let's look at pages 10 and 11 of the PDF document. So that is the income approach. So what I can say is that while the assessor was actually doing her presentation, I actually looked back at the history, and my most recent submission in the past actually did show 231 stalls. So the assessor is correct. That is what we had gone with in the past. So we can actually go with the assessor's income because we are so close either way. So I am willing to accept the assessor's net operating income simply because it is correct on the stall count, and there's not much of a difference in terms of the net monthly rate per stall. So I will accept that $255,024. In terms of the capitalization rate, that's a different story. We've gone with a 5.5, and our reasoning actually is explained in the appendix. So on pages 13 and 14, you can see some maps.
So, Mr. Navarro, I just want to be absolutely clear here. You are agreeing with the assessor's net operating income of 255 and 24, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to
Okay.
make sure I have that absolutely clear before we go forward. So again, forgive me.
Okay.
But that does provide a new value then, of course.
Yes,
That would provide a new value. Based on the cap rate that we have in there, and accepting the 255,024, and we're not accepting the cap rate, but based on our cap rate, that would work out to 4,636,800 or 4,637,000. 4,637,000 rounded.
What I got.
thank you.
Okay, so very good. So on pages 13 and 14, you can see some generalized maps. So the reason that we have this map here is to talk about the issue of the high line. So the high line is an issue simply because it limits the development potential of this site. It's an argument that we've put forward in previous cycles. In previous cycles, the board has accepted it. In some cases, not so much. But it is the reality that there are restrictions on the type of development that could occur here. And the main type of development that is being sought in the downtown is actually multi-residential, if at all. Development has kind of waned a bit over the past few years, but office development has completely fallen off. So we don't think that the highest and best use of this property would be any type of office development. Somebody would try and put a multi-residential development in here. However, given the restrictions, we think the scope of the project would be limited. So on pages 13, you can see the property line as it exists. So I'll talk about this as I go on, but the city has a policy regarding properties that are adjacent to railway corridors. And this is an important railway corridor. You can often see very large trains coming out of here. In fact, I believe you can see it in the picture, one there. However, the High Line as it exists ends at that property line, and that's where they count from. So you can see the separation between our parking lot and the High Line. So what they do is they count 100 feet from that property line. And it would eat up a certain section of the property itself.
Mr. Navarro, you were referring to page 13 at this point?
Yes, yes.
So you're talking about the property line, the line that's running north-south, it says 74.862. Is that the one you're referring to, sir? So
Correct.
you're saying from that line going west, if there's 100-foot setback from that?
Yeah.
Or does it go the other way, sir?
The other way, meaning I'm not sure.
East. Does it go towards the High Line?
It would go either way depending on what you're planning. So if the property next door on the other side of the High Line were contemplating some type of development, there would be a setback of 100 feet from that property line that exists on the east side of the High Line. So the one that says 74.2 F2
Yes.
there. Okay, so that's a separate parcel altogether. So if they were contemplating development, yeah, if they were contemplating development on that, it would be 100 yards or 100 feet from that. And
but 100 feet east, correct?
100 feet east. On our property, it would be 100 feet west.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I had it absolutely clear.
Yeah. So we can actually go to the reference on the railway corridors from the city of Winnipeg, starting on page 15. And if you turn to page 18, you can see the setback rules. So for principal lines, it's 30 meters. For freight rail yards, it's 300 meters. For secondary lines, it's 30 meters and so on and so on. Spur lines are only 15 meters. Now, our subject coming out of Union Station is actually a principal line. So that one would be 30 meters. So from our study, and you can look into this study yourself, the options for this property are restricted, and any potential purchaser would be met with, this policy where, you have to limit the type of residential development that would occur on it. In fact, it's our belief that it's actually one of the reasons that those properties along Main Street have not been developed up to now, because they are also in that same area where they are impacted somewhat because of the railway High Line. And there is that requirement on new setbacks. So our position is that this property carries a lot more risk than a typical property where there is no residential where there is no high line and there is not any risk of that. The assessor's comparisons are coming from properties that are likely not taking that into account, or the model would not be taking that into account. You would have to look at this issue very specifically to see that there is some risk in this property. So its highest and best use from our perspective has always been parking, but at 4.5, we're simply not there with the city. We've seen sales that are from income producing properties that are parking lots, and they're not producing cap rates in the 4.5 range. So we've gone with a 5.5 cap rate on this property, and I'm open for questions.
Ms. Board, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Schultz, any questions?
Just one question. So you're saying the highest and best use for this property is to remain in parking, not in any kind of building as residential or office
No.
space? Your previous property, you were saying that was the highest and best use for that property was again parking, and you gave it a cap rate of 5.25. Why is it different in this case compared to your previous, where you're saying that that property previous on Kennedy was highest and best use at 5.25?
Right. So the property on Kennedy, while it's small, I mean, conceivably it could still be converted into something else. Whereas this one, probably not. It's going to have that going forward because it has that high line right beside it. So unless that changes going forward, we still see that as additional risk.
But you said the previous property was highest best use was
Parking.
you added parking.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread?
I have nothing, thanks.
Okay. And I guess I've heard this argument before. And I understand that the setback would be 30 meters or approximately 100 feet. But I also look at the notation and highlighted on page 19 that says the recommended setbacks apply to principal building, accessory buildings or uses such as garages, sheds, private roads, parking areas may be developed within recommended setback. Public roads can be considered in the setback area for new developments. So I guess at the end of the day, if there was a development on this particular site, Mr. Navarro, based on your measurements at on page 14 as an example, you're looking at approximately 43 meters that could be built on, or more actually, potentially here, I'm not quite certain. But it looks like there would be the opportunity to build something there, would there not? You would
Yeah,
be
and
able to build a
we're not
building
saying
there. If
we're
you
not saying
wanted to, I believe you could, or could you not?
yeah, and understanding that there would be additional setbacks on the building itself, but
Because it's talking about going to the face of the building. So wherever that first contact is, that would be the face of it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So there would be a substantially smaller footprint, but yes, conceivably you could allow something to be constructed in here. Now, that is whether the planners, I guess, would accept something like that. Yeah, we're not saying that. We're just saying that its full potential would not be possible.
All right. I understand the position. Thank you very much. And Ms. Boar, you have your rebuttal, and I believe I already started looking at it by accident, but please, if you would like to just point to it. I know Mr. Navarro has agreed to your stall count, so is that in essence what you're showing here?
Yeah,
All right. So I'm guessing, Mr. Navarro, you have no further questions of the assessor regarding this, sir?
No.
All right. And Ms. Schultz, do you have any further questions?
I do not, thank you.
And Mr. Whitbread, any further questions?
No, I have none either. Thank you.
Thank you, and I believe asked and answered this point, so thank you very much for that additional submission.
you're welcome.
Any final thoughts on this, either party?
No.
No.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 7.
Mr. Chair, just to note, we'll be asking for a confirmation on this one.
All right. So Mr. Water, if we could get you to do a quick introduction to this and the value, and then we will move directly to okay, thank you.
So the file number 242389, roll number is 12092513100. Address is on the Smith Street with no street like a number.
Yeah.
Owner is Rit Holdings 59 Corporation. 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 1,467,000. The subject is a surface parking with the land area of 13,338 square feet. And the number of the parking stalls are 37. And on the page number 2 and the page number 3, I have the pictures of the subject property. The parking lot is the west side of the Smith Street. And it is managed by, I believe, is Zen Park. And page number 4, I don't have any recent sales history of this subject property. And on the page number 5, I have the 4 comparables with the mean of $114.43, and the median is $115.25, and this subject is valued at the land only with $109.99 per square feet. And on the page number 7 and 8, I have the income and expense table. And from the page number 9 up to the page number 14, I have the pictures of the comparable properties. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And questions, Mr. Navarro?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And any questions, Ms. Schultz?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have questions. Mr. Navarro?
We're asking for confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Unable to speak to the owners about this, sir? Is that kind of the idea?
I don't think the information we have is actually correct. So I had to take a second look at that one and see if we actually did this property correctly.
Okay.
So we're just going to ask for confirmation. I will note that that $11 million is not a valid sale. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate your requesting a confirmation on this. So again, thank you. With that, we can then move on to the next item. And that being item number 9. And 168 Edmonton Street. And this was related to the previous one, number 6, correct?
Yes.
And so you were asking for non-cooperation initially, you are now withdrawing that,
Yes,
okay? So Mr. Navarro, you are aware of that now, yes?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead,
sure. The file number 241273, roll number is 120-936-02100. Address is 168 Edmonton Street. The owner is Brand Spring Limited. The 2025 assessed value is based on April 1st, 2023 is 759,000. Subject is the surface parking with the land area of 6,037 square feet. Outdoor parking count are 26. And I'm withdrawing the non-corporation for the subject property. And on the page number 2, I have the pictures of the subject property from the aerial view. And on the page number 3, I have the further picture from the Google Street View. The parking is managed by the Parking Plus. And on the page number 4, I have the one sales on the April 24, 2018, which sworn value is 350,000. But this sale is the state sale, so we are not included for analysis. So the page number 5, I have the 4 comparables with a mean of $128.56 square feet, and the median is $130.41, and the subject is evaluated at the land only at $125.72. So on the page number 7, we will stick on that email information about the income and expense mirror. So therefore, we are disregard the income and expense information of 165 Kennedy and I believe 172 Edmonton Street from the page number 9 up to the page number. The page number 30. So we can disregard that information. From page number 31 up to the page number 36. I have the pictures of the comparable properties, so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
thank you very much. Any questions, Mr. Navarro?
No, I think this is pretty much almost exact like the other property that we dealt with. So I think we can carry anything over to this one. So I have no further questions on it.
Very well. And Ms. Schultz, any questions at this point?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I have any questions either. So, Mr. Navarro, can we hear from you on this, sir?
Yeah, I think we can just flip to page 10. We've gone with a city rate in this case from their parking rate chart from this cycle. And at $90, which is what we went with for the other property as well. That produces an NOI of $28,080 and the same cap rate of 5.25 that was applied to the previous one, rounded value of 535,000. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Warren?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And questions, Ms. Schultz?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, questions?
Yeah, just one area, page 7 of the assessor evidence indicates, bear with me while I find it again. On both lots, the rate is, this is a document I don't think you had access to, Mr. Navarro, for Mr. Bowles, the letter from.
No, I didn't have access to this, no.
Yeah, so that indicates a rate of 180 a month, but that's a gross, is it?
I'm actually not sure. I suspect that it is a gross. So if we take that 3528 per month, that equals 42,336. And if we were to estimate 50% on it, that would be about 21,168 net.
Okay. That's, I'm just confirming that seems to make sense, yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we've estimated a little bit higher than that. So we're good with
I
that.
understand that. I see
Yeah.
that in your numbers. May I redirect to the assessor, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you agree with that assessment, Ms. Applicant, that, or Ms. Assessor, that, our statements are correct, that that's a gross 180 a month?
Yeah, I will agree with that.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. I don't believe I have any questions further. Did touch on you already, Ms. Schultz, for questions, yes?
Correct. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't go around you by accident. My apologies. Any summation from either party at this point?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. And I believe that is the docket so far. So we have heard all items scheduled. And this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much for your time and your patience. Both parties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.